Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, race number 10 at Parx on Saturday is the Grade 1 $1 million Cotillion for 3-year-old fillies going a mile and a 16th. It's a race. It's a card. It's the Pennsylvania Derby card, you know, that you can play with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get 300% the deposit match. Bets.drf.com is where you need to go for all of the information. Here is the field for the Grade 1 Cotillion. Again, carded as race number 10. We've got a field of 8, and we have got a star as your odds-on morning line favorite, Matt. The number 2, Monomoy Girl, 3-5, Florent Giroux, Brad Cox. She's coming into this race off a 5-race win streak. She's a neck away from being a perfect 9 for 9 in her career. And in her coaching club, American Oaks, they gave her the lead. She kind of walked the dog, and she was, again, very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Early on in the 3-year-old campaign, I was trying to find reasons to go against her and look at, yeah, well, you know, maybe distance isn't going to be what she wants. Maybe certain circumstances from race shape are going to work against her. I'm at the point now where I go, she's just awesome. She just shows up. It doesn't matter if she's on the lead. She's won from 100 out of it in the past. She's won sitting off. She goes 1 turn. She goes 2 turns, a mile and an eighth, a mile. Doesn't matter. You throw it at her. She's going to handle it. She's paired up by her tops in her 2 most recent starts. I suppose the only thing, if you are looking for an excuse potentially on Saturday, is this nothing more than a means to an end to get the Breeders' Cup distaff? And if that's the case, perhaps she's not 100% ready to go. But to be honest with you, there's $1 million on the line. I would expect her to be ready to go. I agree, and it's not like she can just come in here and prep for the Breeders' Cup, still a couple of months away. I think they need a good hard race to get into her after skipping the 1.25 miles Alabama. You're right, for $1 million she's going to be fit, and one of the horses she humbled in the CCA Oaks, Eskimo Kisses, came back to win the Alabama with a 100 buyer speed figure. And if Monomoy Girl's attributes just don't already jump off the page, we have the Timeform US Pace Projector, which has Monomoy Girl out there controlling the pace on the lead. We don't see a red bar that indicates a fast pace. A fair pace makes Monomoy Girl doubly or triply tough. The 3-jump ruler is pushing the pace slightly on the pace projector, but I would think for a filly that once ran for a $40,000 maiden claiming tag, they're not going to sacrifice jump ruler when they can get a valuable Grade 1 placing by being a little bit patient. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a number of times in the past when we look at these races for the girls. Oftentimes you need to handicap what the connections are looking for. At this point, with this filly, she's very unlikely to win a race like this, but if she gets a piece of this, all of a sudden she goes up tremendously, exponentially from a value standpoint. I think they're going to try to sit just off of a horse like Monomoy Girl and hope that this turns into a bit of a merry-go-round.
And she's been very consistent. She's never been off the board in route races, 7 for 7, coming off a dominating win against much weaker at Monmouth Park. But from a buyer speed figure standpoint, she's got a long way to go to match the likes of Monomoy Girl. Third in the Timeform US Pace Projector is Separation of Powers, who has won routing, but it was a 1-turn mile as a 2-year-old in the Grade 1 Frisette. Last time out in the test, she had to work very, very hard to beat an extremely game Mia Mischief, but she earned a 93 buyer speed figure in gaining her 2nd Grade 1 victory. Now she has to stretch out to a mile and a 16th. From a pedigree standpoint, I think a mile and a 16th is within her scope, and I think she can show a little bit more speed, maybe shadowing Monomoy Girl early.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of am projecting her to be the one to push things early on. Maybe she's the one that sits closest attendance to Monomoy Girl. But to be honest with you, it's not so much that I think a mile and a 16th is going to be a problem. I think she's just ultimately going to prove to be better and more effective going 1 turn. And you know what? For the connections, that's not going to be a bad thing. If she can run here and she runs well, great. If she runs a little bit flat toward the end, you turn her back. You've got the filly and mare sprint coming up here in a few weeks. I think this is a fine spot to take a chance with her. I don't love her in a spot like this, but I think this could ultimately be really kind of a no-lose situation. If it doesn't work, you turn her back. If it does work, then you have other options.
Wonder Godot won the Queen's Plate, the Prince of Wales, the first 2 jewels of the Canadian Triple Crown against males, and then found the Travers just a little bit too tough against the boys at Saratoga, going 1.25 miles. She's cutting back to a mile and a 16th, and this will be the first time she's raced against only fillies since the Woodbine Oaks back in June. But I thought one of her great advantages was more distance, not less. Turning back to a mile and a 16th, I don't think we'll see that speed we saw in the Prince of Wales. She'll probably be coming from mid-pack, hoping for a hot pace.
I think she fits much better against these girls. I think she has a puncher's chance. The problem is, as you alluded to, that distance. I always thought that that was the thing. We always talk about it. Distance is the great equalizer. Well, especially in an instance like this, where maybe the longer you go with a horse like Midnight Bisou, or the longer you go with Monomoy Girl, as opposed to Wonder Godot, maybe they come up wanting. I just think this is probably going to be a little bit sharp for Wonder Godot, and I think she's better at those 1 1/8, 1 1/4 distances.
Let's talk about the 7 Midnight Bisou, never off the board from 9 lifetime starts, Grade 1 stakes winner. She has credentials in the Coaching Club American Oaks. I think the lack of pace really worked against her. Mike Smith seemed very happy in the first quarter mile because Geo Game, it looked like, was going to go after Monomoy Girl and push, but it was really only token pressure, and Smith had to move early to get Midnight Bisou into the race, and she just couldn't get by Monomoy Girl at 1 1/8. Last time out in the Alabama, she came with a long, wide bid on the turn, flattened out late. I think she's best at this 1 1/16 distance. I think 1 1/8 and 1 1/4 is too far for Midnight Bisou. The question is she as good as Monomoy Girl? I don't know. At the price, 5 to 1 in the morning line, I might be tempted to find out because she's talented.
Yeah, and I can't fault anyone that looks at it and says, strictly from a value standpoint, this is the smart play in here, because again, there's probably not a heck of a lot separating the two. And if you tell me that you're going to get 4 or 5 or 6 times the price on Midnight Bisou that you are on Monomoy Girl, then from a value standpoint, this makes sense. The point that you brought up is really kind of what I finally have gotten to this point, where I just don't think she's as good as Monomoy Girl, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, she's right there. She's one of the top 2 or 3 3-year-old fillies of her entire generation, but I just kind of feel like there's a scenario now at this point where Monomoy Girl is just better.
Chocolate Martini is a horse that could definitely get a piece of this at the very least for Tom Amoss. We talked about the Coaching Club American Oaks and how Monomoy Girl controlled the pace, and how Midnight Bisou might have been a bit compromised. Well, Chocolate Martini was probably more compromised, attempting to rally from the back of the pack, and she did well to finish 3rd with a career-best 89 Beyers speed figure. Tom Amoss has very good numbers with these kind of horses, as we see from our formulator fact. 3-year-old dirt routers, 2 to 4 month layoffs, 33% winners, a $2.10 ROI. Chocolate Martini is solid. Does she get enough pace?
I don't think so, but I suppose there is a scenario where if you want to look at her, and you can make a case that she's maybe a little bit dirtied up on paper, where, like you say, she didn't get the pace to run at in the CCA Oaks. 2 starts back, she had no chance running like that at Santa Anita. That's just not going to work over that racing trip. Then you go with the Kentucky Oaks. I don't think that distance is really ideal for her. Then you're left with the Fairgrounds Oaks at 1 1/16. If she gets some pace, she can come with a run. The problem is, again, she's a little bit on the slow side, and she is pace dependent.
Pennsylvania-bred Dixie Serenade, one of the local hopes in this race, got a graded stakes win, coming from well off an extremely hot pace to win the Victory Ride 2 starts back. Completely different situation last time out, returning to Parx. There was no pace and no chance for her to deal with a pretty underrated horse in Bronx Beauty. Dixie Serenade, though, is going to stretch out for the first time in her career, and she's a late-running sprinter. I'm not sure she's the kind of stretch-out sprinter that's going to be pushing the pace, and I'm not sure her kick is going to be as effective going this 2 turns, and I'm not sure she's as good as Monomoy Girl, but the price will be right.
Yeah, from a talent standpoint, I don't think she's as good as the top 2 or 3 in here. You're right. The price is going to be very, very fair. And I also think she's going to be that kind of horse where she's not a Breeders' Cup type, but you can find other instances, whether it's in New York or in Pennsylvania or in the Mid-Atlantic, whether you go into Maryland, turn her back in distance, have that late run. I think she'll be interesting in a spot like that.
Locally based Norma's Charm completes the field. She's 1 for 17 lifetime. She's been beaten by a couple of these already. We have a negative formulator fact. The barn over the past 5 years, 3-year-olds on dirt stretching out 0 for 38. Don't let that formulator fact dissuade you. She might be 50 to 1 at post time.
Yeah, she might be 50 to 1. Hard to like her in a spot like this, but I'm not going to talk you off.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 1 Cotillion Stakes. Matt, you're not fooling around. Monomoy Girl gets to the top and is just the best.
Well, especially if you think that that is how it's going to play out, and Timeform US saying that there is no red bar, that it's just going to be a moderate pace with her out there. If that's the case, I think you're just going to see a repeat of the CCA Oaks. I'll be fascinated to see if Separation of Powers or someone else gets a little bit more aggressive. I almost wonder if Mike Smith and Midnight Bisou, maybe they're the ones that say, you know what, we can't have a replay of what happened at Saratoga. Let's at least take the race to her a little bit earlier and see if perhaps maybe a little bit of early pressure makes Monomoy Girl crack. I have a sneaky feeling, even if that's the case, then maybe she's just better. But to me, it's down to those 2. It's the 2 and the 7.
I agree with you completely. Those are the only 2 horses I would use in multiple race wagers. But I am interested to see Midnight Bisou cut back. She's 3 for 3 at a mile and a 16th. I think the mile and an 1/8 in the Coaching Club American Oaks worked against her, as did the pace setup. I think the mile and a 1/4 definitely worked against her in the Alabama. It didn't help that Smith had her about 5 paths wide on the backstretch and 3 wide going into the far turn. I think that separation of powers might push the favorite a little bit early. We'll see. This is kind of my last chance at Midnight Bisou against Monomoy Girl. She'll be a slightly better price. I'll go 7-2-5-6. Matt's going 2-7. It's the Grade 1 Cotillion on Pennsylvania Derby Saturday at Parx, and it's a great opportunity to bet with DRF Bets. Sign up, get a 300% deposit match at bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for Monomoy Girl in the Grade 1 Cotillion, 4:55 Eastern. Best of luck.